NBC4 News at 11 a.m. starts with breaking news.
Yeah, we begin with that breaking news this morning. New reports say former President Barack Obama is urging President Joe Biden to reconsider staying in the race. Hello, I'm John Knbc. We want to get straight to NBC4's Conan Nolan live in Milwaukee, covering the Republican National Convention. And Conan, I can imagine this news is spreading fast there.
It certainly is. You know, I don't want to be flippant about it, but to put it in the terms of the late Vin Scully, when it comes to the Biden-Harris campaign, the wheels are coming off the wagon. The president, now suffering from COVID, we have learned, was told by Jeffrey Katzenberg, co-chair of his campaign, huge Hollywood media mogul who's been fundraising for him, that the money is now drying up. The Democratic National Committee has agreed to postpone the Zoom call they were going to have on August the 7th to nominate him before the convention. That's been put off. Yes, Gavin Newsom and Alex Padilla, two leading Democrats in California, are still in his corner, but Adam Schiff has essentially thrown him overboard, saying he needs to leave the ticket. And now, the number one Democrat in the party, whose name is not Joe Biden, is hinting at least that the president needs to reconsider his place on the ticket. We talked with Kristen Welker, host of Meet the Press.
It doesn't get any bigger than Barack Obama and his opinion. And so for Barack Obama to think that President Biden has a narrow path really reflects the fact that a huge swath of the Democratic Party thinks that his path is narrowing. And so, yes, it is hugely significant that Obama is conveying this, but it is also significant. Look, it's tough for Obama to convey that directly to Biden because the two have a very complicated past when it relates to these things. Remember, it was Barack Obama who, back in 2016, really urged his then vice president not to run so that Hillary Clinton could run. And look, I think the fact that you have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries expressing to President Biden in private that the polls are dire, that is equally significant. And so I think it's the chorus of voices inside the Democratic Party, these big voices inside the Democratic Party telling President Biden that his path is narrow, if non-existent. That's where the pressure point's going to come.
And keep in mind, pollsters for the Democratic Party take a look at each night of this convention. They focus group voters to see whether or not what's coming out of this hall is resonating. Obviously, it is. And tonight, further evidence that the Republican Party is reaching out to a formerly a solid Democratic Party constituency that is working class, white and Hispanic and black workers. They're going to have the president introduced by the CEO of the Ultimate Fighting Challenge or Championship, the UFC, which essentially is a sport which caters to the kind of voters that work with their hands, that are union members, and who believe in the populist message of this Republican ticket. The former president speaks tonight around during prime time. We're expecting his speech to last about an hour. He says it's going to be about unity, but he's also going to certainly prosecute the case against the incumbent president. Reporting live from Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention. John, back to you.
Conan, thank you. Looking forward to your reports tonight. We want to introduce Jessica Levinson, clinical professor of law and director of the Public Service Institute at Loyola Law School. Hello, Jessica. Thanks for joining us so quickly here this morning. Is it too late for Biden to drop out of this? Are we looking at some legal ramifications in this?
It's a great question. It's late, but not too late. When it comes to nominating a new nominee, it is absolutely possible under the DNC rules. And when it comes to people doing what they do in November, which is walking into polling places and casting their ballots or getting ballots through the mail, it is not too late. We are getting, the longer it goes, the more complicated it is in terms of printing up ballots. But again, it's the middle of July. There is absolutely time. There's both time under the DNC rules and there's time under state election rules as well.
And what about the regular voter? I mean, does it matter what the president says?
This is a great question. I think the answer is probably just President Obama saying, I think there's a problem, may not be the thing that breaks the dam. But as you heard Conan Nolan say, the wheels are off. And it's because it's not just President Obama. It's also Adam Schiff. It's also the big donors. And it's the most important group. It's the voters. Look at the swing voters in the swing states. That's what everybody here is responding to. So I don't think it's President Obama alone, although that's a big deal. It is breaking news. It's everybody in combination.
Jessica, thanks so much and good seeing you again. We want to take you to a live picture now out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. We understand that Vice President Kamala Harris will be there to speak at a campaign event today. We're going to have more on that as well on the NBC4 News later today. It is the last day of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee tonight. Former President Donald Trump will take to the stage to formally accept his party's nomination just days after surviving an attempt on his life. NBC4's Kathy Vara joins us now with what to expect and a little preview of what we'll see this evening. Kathy.
A lot of politics happening fast today. John, tonight is the night, too, the final day of the Republican National Convention, and former President Donald Trump will formally accept the nomination. Security remains tight in Milwaukee ahead of the president's speech tonight. This will be his first time speaking out following Saturday's assassination attempt at a rally in Pennsylvania. After that shooting, Mr. Trump said he was modifying his convention speech today. He says he completely threw it away and started from scratch. His goal, he says, is to get straight to the issues facing our nation and to bring a sense of unity. Now, we heard from his son, Eric Trump, just a few moments ago.
He wants to get America back on track, and we've lost our way. So I think you're going to find an inspirational speech, but one that's very focused on, putting our country first again. Our country hasn't been first for a very long time. We need to go back to it.
Last night was night 3 of making a case to voters about the future of the White House and the country come November. But the first time to hear from the man who could be the next vice president and what some are calling the future of the Republican Party. Vance is 39 years old, a former Marine, and the first veteran on a major party's ticket since the late Senator John McCain ran for president in 2008. His speech, an opportunity to introduce himself to voters. He's been seen in the U.S. Senate for a little more than a year, and he made a case for the America First approach that Trump championed while in office, branding current President Joe Biden as a career politician on the wrong side of trade deals and international conflict.
Joe Biden has been a politician in Washington for longer than I've been alive, 39 years old. Kamala Harris is not much further behind. For half a century, he's been the champion of every major policy initiative to make America weaker and poorer. And in 4 short years, Donald Trump reversed decades of betrayals inflicted by Joe Biden and the rest of the corrupt Washington insiders.
And in a solemn moment earlier in the evening, the families of some U.S. service members killed in Afghanistan spoke out against President Biden. Among the Gold Star family members who spoke were Herman and Alicia Lopez from the Coachella Valley, criticizing the Biden administration for how it handled the military withdrawal from Afghanistan.
The Biden administration has not owned up to the bad decisions. They have not been transparent about their failures, and their so-called leaders work to protect themselves rather than our sons and daughters who took the oath to defend our country.
13 American service members died in the Kabul airport attack during the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, all of them named aloud on the convention floor. 3 of them were from here in Southern California. Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, the Lopez's son, Corporal Hunter Lopez, and Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui were our local Marines. Among the list of speakers on this final night, we will hear from Hulk Hogan. We are told former First Lady Melania Trump will make an appearance, but will not be speaking. A performance by Kid Rock is followed by that keynote speech by former President Donald Trump. That is the latest. John, back to you.
Kathy, thank you. And stay with NBC4 for live coverage of the Republican National Convention that begins at 6 o'clock tonight. And then stay with us for the special edition of the NBC4 News at 8. A procession of fire trucks and emergency vehicles could be seen leaving a funeral home in Freeport, Pennsylvania, where the man killed during Saturday's Trump rally will be remembered. Former Fire Chief Corey Comprator was 50 years old and attended the rally with his wife and 2 daughters. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said after hearing the gunshots, Comparator dove over his loved ones to protect them. Last night, hundreds gathered to remember him. Public visitation is set for today, and a private funeral service will happen tomorrow. We're learning new details about the assassination attempt on former President Trump and what the Secret Service knew in the moments before the shots were fired. In a briefing with the FBI and Secret Service, senators learned that the gunman was identified as suspicious more than an hour before the shooting. Multiple sources familiar with the briefing said they learned about this timeline. 5:51 p.m. Pennsylvania State Police told the Secret Service about a suspicious person. Then at 5:53, 2 minutes later, the Secret Service notified its snipers. At 6:02, Donald Trump took the stage. At 6:09, members of the crowd shouted to police that Thomas Crooks was on the rooftop. 2 minutes later, shots rang out. This morning, the U.S. Secret Service said this: "We were notified of a suspicious person possibly carrying a backpack and a golf rangefinder. There's a big difference between a threat and a suspicious person." NBC News has also learned the shooter visited the site the day before the rally. Investigators say they've gone through the shooter's electronic devices. They've interviewed hundreds of people, but they still do not know his motive. Back here at home, 4 people are injured, 2 others detained after a shooting outside a taco stand in Westlake. It happened just after midnight. One man was shot in the stomach and rushed to the hospital. Police say he was the intended target. 3 others hit were innocent bystanders and expected to be okay. One bullet pierced a white van parked in front of the taco stand, just missing the children inside, including a disabled boy that was sitting there in the seat. It's so far unclear what led to that shooting. Next at 11, a dangerous pursuit streamed live, if you can believe it, on social media. A driver pulls out his phone with a baby in the back seat. What police say set this all off. Plus, a shocking case of animal cruelty after hikers found a dog zip-tied on the side of a Malibu trail. There's now a new push to find those responsible for the abuse.
NBC4 News at 11 a.m. starts now.
Right now at 11, a U.S. Marine killed in Bellflower. What investigators just announced today to help them track down the people responsible. Good morning, I'm Kathy Vara in for Michael Brownlee. NBC4's Michelle Valles joins us live from Monterey Park with more. Michelle?
And good morning. It was so heart-wrenching hearing the Marines family just really share their pain and grief, hoping someone will come forward. That's why the LA County Deputies Homicide Bureau wants to speak to all parties involved, offering a $20,000 reward, hoping it will lead to an arrest. This is the Marine Peter Chuntala. He was an active Marine from the Wounded Warrior as well, who served in Afghanistan, a dedicated husband and father of a 3-year-old boy, and had 2 younger sisters. Deputies believe he was an innocent victim. It was on May 28th, just after 2 a.m. Deputies say 2 men attacked the 42-year-old on Virginia Avenue and Artesia Boulevard. Peter fell into the street and was killed by a passing driver. Both the attackers and the driver took off. The family is crying out for closure.
Believe me, they will find you no matter where you are, how far you go, or how long you run. You will not escape, and you cannot escape. Please do the right thing.
It's painful knowing that I'm a widow, but knowing that our son is without a father now, I think it just makes it so much more painful to bear.
If we come out, this is a look at the suspect vehicle, or the vehicle that the driver was in, a 2001 to 2023 Kia K5. They were seen leaving eastbound there in Bellflower. The Marine and his wife, also a service member, had so many plans. Peter was going to retire next year to raise his 3-year-old boy. They're begging anyone who has information, who might have seen something on that night, just after 2 a.m. On that May 28th. Call that number, 323-890-5500. Reporting live outside the Homicide Bureau in Monterey Park, Michelle Valles, NBC4 News. Back to you.
We'll be following up too. Thank you, Michelle. President Biden's getting ready to speak to the nation and talk about why he decided to drop out of this year's presidential race. It will happen at 5 o'clock, and we will bring it to you live here on NBC4. Today, Vice President Harris is campaigning in Indianapolis. Former President Trump has a rally in Charlotte, North Carolina. NBC's Bree Jackson has the latest from Washington on the race for the White House.
President Biden preparing to address the nation tonight about his decision to drop out of the 2024 presidential race.
I expect that he'll lay out a governing vision for the balance of his term.
The 81-year-old's speech follows his endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris for president. She's also being backed by top Democrats on Capitol Hill.
We've seen the Democratic Party swiftly coalesce behind Vice President Kamala Harris.
President Joe Biden has made the selfless decision to pass the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris, who is ready, willing, and able to lead us into the future.
Harris is hitting the campaign trail. During her first campaign stop as the clear frontrunner for the Democratic nomination, the 59-year-old spoke to an energized crowd in Wisconsin, a key battleground state. The former prosecutor laying out her case against former President Trump.
As a prosecutor, I specialized in cases involving sexual abuse. Well, Trump was found liable for committing sexual abuse.
Trump is ramping up his attacks.
She was the worst. She was the worst at everything. She was the worst vice president.
The former president says he's committed to debating Vice President Harris now that President Biden is stepping aside following concerns about his poor debate performance.
Today, the DNC Rules Committee meets to formalize the process for their virtual roll call. As of now, their plan remains to formally nominate a candidate by August 7th. That is when the first state deadline comes up for certifying who is on the ballot. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
Today, FBI Director Christopher Wray revealed some new details about the assassination attempt on former President Trump. Wray appeared before the House Judiciary Committee, and he told a congressional committee 8 cartridges were recovered from the roof where the gunman fired.
We have recovered 8 cartridges on the roof.
At this point, have you developed any evidence to so suggest that there are any accomplices or cooperators or assisters?
Not at this time, but again, the investigation's ongoing.
Former President Trump says he plans to stop holding outdoor rallies after the assassination attempt. That is according to 2 sources familiar with his campaign's operations. They say the former president will hold indoor rallies instead. And once again, President Biden will speak in a primetime address, his first public comment since he made the decision to drop out of the race. NBC4 will bring you the president's address live tonight at 5. We're looking live from Long Beach, and we definitely will be feeling the heat today. Today is going to be one of the hottest days of the week, and as we bring meteorologist Shauna Mendiola in to track the first alert forecast, it feels humid still, too.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and turn the page, though, as we head to tomorrow and Friday. It's already Wednesday, right? So we're almost there. There will be improvement, but like Kathy said, humidity is still here, so we have a pop-up chance of thunderstorms this afternoon still. You'd feel it in the air. It's a little thick, and those temperatures are still running hot. 70s at the beach, though, so that's where we're finding that relief. Elsewhere, it's still warm. 80s for you in downtown LA right now. We got some 90s in the Inland Empire and close to triple-digit heat up in the deserts where that We'll get up to those triple-digit numbers here in just a few hours, so we are on the way there. Heat alert still in effect just for one more day, so we're almost there, folks. You can see the valleys, the Inland Empire up through the deserts and mountains still under this risk. We still have warm overnight lows, but you can feel it in some areas here last night. We started to get a little bit cooler, and it's just taking its time. So as we head to tomorrow night, that's when things should ramp up, and then Friday's looking a lot better. But today, another hot day on the forecast, at 90 degrees for you in Los Angeles downtown, some triple-digit heat in the Inland Empire. Same thing for the high desert with Lancaster and Victorville, 106 and 108 today. We'll watch out for any thunderstorm chances for you here as we head to those afternoon hours, so stay tuned to the forecast. Kathy, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Shauna. We have a live look right now from Capitol Hill, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is addressing a joint meeting of Congress today. This is his first address to Congress since the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7th. An estimated 100 Israeli hostages are still believed to be held captive in Gaza. The Biden administration is pushing for a ceasefire agreement and hostage release deal.
Are we ready? Are we ready?
Netanyahu's visit is not without controversy, though. Pro-Palestinian groups have gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest today's address. They also plan to march around the Capitol building to create what they call a red line against genocide. Some Delta passengers are still trying to get their summer vacation to their summer vacation destinations after last week's global IT outage. Now, most airlines have recovered, but some Delta travelers are still running into issues, and the problems have prompted a federal investigation into the company. NBC4's John Caddy's Klimak is live out at LAX with some promising updates. That sounds good. John, good morning.
Yeah, it is, and you can look behind me and you can see the lines are not nearly what we saw over the last few days. I want to point out the big board here, too. One of the Delta employees were telling us, make sure you look at the big board because we're doing really well today. They didn't have any cancellations except now. Now we're seeing the first cancellation here out of LAX. A few more delays. That is all to be expected, but the CEO of Delta today says things are about to change.
Fingers crossed.
Cautious optimism for Delta passengers at LAX this morning.
I just feel like I'm scared it's going to stop.
Many of them arriving early and hoping the wait would finally be over to head home. Moses Gutman has been waiting since Thursday to get to Jacksonville, finally acquiescing to Delta's latest option.
And now we go instead of Jacksonville to Orlando, and we have to rent a car and go from Orlando to Jacksonville as a drive.
Have they said that they'll cover the cost for that? Will they reimburse you?
When we was in the line and we asked for supervisor, he told us that we need to give the receipt, and after that go to the website and send them the receipts, then we get it.
The Martin family was supposed to leave LA on Sunday. Those blue error screens ended that.
10 minutes before the flight leaving, they canceled.
Delta CEO released a statement this morning apologizing to customers, but saying this: we've made good progress this week, and the worst impacts of the CrowdStrike-caused outage are clearly behind us. Delays and cancellations were down 50% Tuesday compared to Monday, and we anticipate cancellations Wednesday to be minimal. Thursday is expected to be a normal day with the airline fully recovered. Good news, finally, but not before the U.S. Department of Transportation said that it would be investigating why Delta seemed to be the only airline affected in this way after the CrowdStrike security software mishap crashed computers worldwide before a fix went out within hours. Delta took much longer to recover. Now passengers just hope that they'll get their money back for expenses they didn't plan to have.
I hope so. If not, they're really going to hear from me. I'm going to file a complaint if they don't.
For the Martin family, that means their hotel stays since Sunday. Luckily, they might have an edge.
I'm going to make sure I see it through as well. And we live in Atlanta, so I can go pay a visit to Delta headquarters.
And worst case scenario, reach out to the U.S. Department of Transportation because they say they too are going to make sure that Delta is doing right by its passengers because they say it is the law. Reporting live at LAX, I'm John Caddy's Klimak. Kathy, back to you.
All right, thank you, John. Coming up next here at 11, Disneyland deal, the major announcement impacting thousands of workers. And we're counting down to the start of the Paris Olympics. Find out who just got picked to be the female flag bearer for the opening ceremony for Team USA.